Project Dragonfly back on the table. What does this mean? Are we going to get a vote on this?
We'll probably see a vote, but to be honest, it's not going to go anywhere. I mean, this investment firm has a very small position in Google. More what this is about is them sort of, raising this issue again and again. And this is something that's not, going to go away for Google. The company has said, look, we're not doing it. As you saw that clip from the CEO there, their current line is that they have no current plans. Now, that's contradicted by some reporting that's out there that said the company was very far along, that they could have, almost launched this when it was found out and clearly put on hold.
So, Gerrit, Sundar Pichai has said they have no plans to launch in China right now. I've talked to the CFO, Ruth Porat, who said they have no plans to launch in China right now. What exactly is Google doing with respect to China right now?
So Google obviously does employ quite a few people in China. The Android operating system is the most popular operating system for Chinese smartphone users. Chinese smartphone users use a ton of apps that are downloaded through the Android Play Store. So the company does have a stake in the country. What we're waiting for, though, is Google to say, okay, well, we're putting this thing, to bed, that Project Dragonfly, whatever you want to call it, is not going to go forward. And the company, although they say they have no plans right now, they've not come out and said what a lot of the internal activists want, a lot of what the external activists want, and that's to say, we're not going to do this. We're not going to build a search engine if it includes censorship.
How important would the China business be for Google?
I mean, China is, if not, the most important technology market of the future. It's definitely one of the most important markets, and there's definitely a sense that Google, missed out on a lot of the growth that's been happening there. If you look at Apple, a huge portion of their revenue and a huge portion of their growth comes from China, although that, sort of backfired on them when the Chinese economy contracted late last year. Google does have that presence when it comes to Android, but not when it comes to sort of their core search business, which is how they make most of their money.
Google co-founder Sergey Brin was one of the chief proponents of Google pulling out of China all those years ago. Do we know where Sergey Brin and Larry Page stand on China?
They've both been pretty careful to sort of, stay in the background on this. I mean, I've heard that they have sort of, answered questions at internal meetings at Google. They haven't come out strongly. I do think that there's a sense here that they want to let the current official leadership of Google, that's Sundar Pichai, kind of take the lead on this one and sort of hold it. As you said, it's true. They were the ones that were concerned about, the company's presence, the influence that the Chinese government was trying to have on Google in China back when the company originally pulled out. At this point, though, they are not having, any strong opinions, and they still do have that controlling vote. So if they wanted this proposal by Azad Asset Management to pass, they could make it pass.
How does this play into Google's other controversies, such as the handling of sexual misconduct by executives? Would continued talk of this Project Dragonfly just continue to affect its image?
It definitely does. I mean, it stays out in the news, and more and more people sort of read about Google. And as the narrative is that this company is sort of beset by these problems, even though the underlying business seems to be going very well, firing on all cylinders, if this kind of stays out in the news and there's continued criticism, it might make it more difficult for Google to hire people. They might lose some of their top talent that has worked at Google for years, thinking it's a company that's different from other companies, that has values beyond just continuing to make money. Obviously, most Google employees are not necessarily out in the streets waving signs about this, but it is something that you can tell a lot of employees do think about and do care about.
Google employees were out in the streets waving signs around Google's handling of sexual misconduct, and there were some movements to agitate around this China issue. Are employees organizing about this?
They're still organizing, and to be clear, there was a huge turnout when it came to that specific walkout, which was in response to massive payouts to a specific executive, Andy Rubin, when there came accusations of sexual harassment while he was in a position of power at Google. When it comes to the China issue, there is a lot of people at Google that are concerned about this, but a lot of this sort of, engaging with the media, engaging with activist groups is coming from sort of this core group of people at Google that do care deeply about this, and they're reaching out to their fellow employees and trying to keep the fire going, trying to keep them organized.